Your electorate, of course, has a lot of coal mines or coal-fired power stations. Have you noticed that during the pandemic, especially in the latter few weeks, a lot of renewable energy zealots have been trying to tell us that the way out of all this is to invest more in renewable energy? I don't quite understand the logic.
Yeah, neither do I, Chris. And quite frankly, the climate change zealots have been somewhat pushed aside with regard to the coronavirus being on the front pages and in all the news bulletins and so forth. But recently, of course, I saw someone on another program advocate for Australia setting up as much solar and wind opportunities as possible and exporting via cable, undersea cable, electricity to other countries. And of course, I couldn't even imagine how much land we would actually have to cover, probably usable land that we would have to cover to be able to generate enough electricity through solar and wind to run it through thousands of kilometres of cables, not only to get, even if you went from the centre of Australia through to other countries, you're talking, literally thousands and thousands of kilometres. The loss of electricity, it's, anywhere from 8 to 15%. I think it's a fanciful idea where at the end of the day, in the same article that I saw, comments were made around the earth healing as a result of.
I've got some of that. I've got some of that television report here, Michael. Let's just take a look at it. This is Channel 10's The Project last week.
Some pre-pandemic modelling suggests that committing to a 2030 target of 53% renewable energy could create up to 59,000 direct jobs and many more indirectly.
Australia has enough wind and solar resources to power the entire world for 10 years. That's the opportunity that exists. High voltage direct current cables to Asia to export our solar energy, and using solar energy to drive aluminium smelting and even creating hydrogen that we can export around the world.
Well, it's just wild claims, of course, Michael. We hear them very often, but I would have thought coming out of this sort of pandemic-imposed economic shutdown, what we're going to need most is cheap, reliable energy, lower levels of government impost on businesses and people rather than more.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, that correspondent made the comment around 50,000 new jobs. Well, it's estimated that by the end of this year, New South Wales alone will have a 400,000 jobless figure. And, that's 400,000 people just in New South Wales as a result of this current pandemic and the measures taken to have to fill the gap on. And it's just not going to happen. What we do need to do is we need to drive investment into cheaper forms of energy. And, that includes coal. There's no doubt about that. Coal's got to be front and centre of this, as does gas. And we need to make things as cheap as possible, take away as much regulation as possible, and get allow the entrepreneurs and the business people to actually start running this economy again and driving this economy again and actually filling the gap on that 400,000 estimated jobless figure that we've got, or we will have in New South Wales alone. And, quite frankly, if the earth was so negatively affected by use of fossil fuels, for example, then why is it recovering so quickly in only a couple of weeks, in a matter of weeks?
Well, so, I think that's the project's spin on it. I don't think that's really the case. But I think your case for gas is overwhelming because, of course, it's far fewer emissions than coal, and, of course, it melds in very well with renewable energy because it can fire up and down so quickly. I need to get you on some base political matters, Michael. Firstly, your own state leader, John Barilaro, the Deputy Premier, was thinking about shooting through to Canberra in a by-election the other day, but he's going to stay put. But are you worried about his lack of commitment to the state?
No, not at all. In fact, John's decision today, the Deputy Premier's decision today not to stand, after giving it, quite frankly, it's fair that he did give it some consideration. He's totally and utterly committed to his electorate and the state of New South Wales. And I, for one, am very glad that he is hanging around in state parliament.
Well, it sounds like
It's a great asset.
it sounds like the Nats are virtually getting out of the way to make sure the Liberals can have a good tilt at this seat. And the State Transport Minister, Andrew Constance, apparently is going to nominate tomorrow. So he'll switch from state politics to federal politics if he can in this by-election, which is where all the attention is focused. But what about Fiona Cotvoys? Fiona Cotvoys was the Liberal Party candidate at the last federal election. She went within 1% of winning that seat. Now, I don't run Labor and Greens strategy, but if I was them, I'd be saying, here goes the Liberals, the coalition again, just pushing aside the female candidates when they think a seat can be won.
Yeah, I think it's important to have you and everyone understand, Chris, that I'm not going to get involved in federal pre-selections nor the machinations of the Liberal Party. I'm a National Party member, and that's where I'm going to stay focused on.
You're not going to put up a word of defence for Fiona Cotvoys? She shouldn't be the one to run, given she ran and nearly won it last time?
Look, I don't know personally, I don't know Fiona, and I'm sure the local people and the people of the Liberal Party will make their decision accordingly.